with the breakout session themed Corporate Governance in a Changing Society. This program is live on YouTube, and as you may know, since 2014, VBCSD, VCCI has already launched and organized the Vietnam Corporate Sustainability Forum, or VSSF, on an annual basis to facilitate dialogue and to share the ideas and exchange ideas between the government and the business community. The year 2020 is being faced with a wide range of challenges, including the COVID-19 pandemic, and it has already resulted in new ways of working. And today, VBCSD, VCCI is honored to organize the breakout session, Corporate Governance in a Changing Society. And the results of our discussion today will be the inputs for the upcoming event in December this year. It's my great pleasure to welcome and also introduce to you His Excellency Mr. Tien Loc, VCCI Chairman and VBCSD Chairman. Mr. Nguyễn Quang Vinh, VCCI General Secretary and VBCSD Vice Executive Chairman. Mr. Bino Jakov, VBCSD Co-Chair. Mrs. Ha Thị Thu Thanh, VBCSD Vice Chair. Mrs. Trần Anh Đào, Deputy Director General of Ho Chi Minh City Stock Exchange. Mr. Danis Brunetti, VBCSD Vice Chair. Mrs. Cao Thị Ngọc Dung from PNJ. Mrs. Cẩm Ly, VBCSD Vice Chair. Mrs. Vadia Verfoot from AmCham Vietnam. We are also very honored to have representatives of international organizations, the government agencies, and also the media outlets. It's my honor and pleasure to give the floor to Dr. Vũ Tien Loc, VCCI Chairman and VBCSD Chairman, to give his opening remarks. Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. On behalf of VCCI, I would like to thank you all, our business representatives, experts, and our friends and colleagues from government agencies, research institutes, to the forum today. The breakout session themed corporate governance in a changing society today. It has something that we need to change. I think it's not society. I think it must be a changing world instead of saying changing society, because everything is changing now in the world, not just in the society. So I suggest that we may change the theme from corporate governance in a changing society to corporate governance in a changing world. There's a saying in the world today, nothing is a constant. Everything is changing. One thing that remains unchanged, that is change itself. So today we are talking about the corporate governance in a changing world. Since the beginning of this year, we have already experienced disruption, and it's unprecedented in our history. I also like to say that despite this challenge, some experts and specialists have already warned about it. A few years ago, they warned and forecast that the biggest crisis facing the humanity lies in pandemic and natural changes rather than human-to-human conflict, even though the conflicts remain, for example, trade tension, geopolitical tensions. But the biggest crisis will be involving the relationship between humanity and the nature and also pandemics. And at least two people have already warned against this. First of all, former President Obama of the United States, while he was a president, he projected that the upcoming crisis could be the pandemic or the natural changes. And Jack Ma from China of Alibaba has already given us such a warning. And I can say that corporate governance in a changing society, in a changing world, must be resilient, must be adaptable to the nature, must be fluid and aligned to the new trends. It's quite interesting because it's so close to the Buddhist teachings. We can only control ourselves rather than control things beyond our control. So the best way to respond to the external changes is to strengthen our governance, corporate governance. One of the foundations here is the corporate governance towards sustainability, striking a balance between economic development, environmental protection. When we talk about Industry 4.0, we just focused on technology without mentioning society and the environment. We could not see the world only through the technological lenses. In a new world, it's not the IQ, intelligence quotient, or emotional quotient, IQ or EQ. I think the LQ or love quotient and AQ, the adaptability quotient, are the critical things for us to manage through the changing world. In Vietnam, we have a very famous song. I'm sure that all of you are familiar with this song. It's a very beautiful song, and there's a sentence saying that, hey, please listen to, please be attentive, please listen to the breath of the city. So that means we look at the city not just from the perspective of the buildings, but also we have to feel and listen to the breath of the city. And there's also a saying that when we live in a place, we have an attachment to that place. So I think we need to lay such a solid foundation for corporate governance. It's not a matter of technology, it's a matter of culture and also even spiritual things. Sometimes we cannot explain things physically, but we can only feel or we can only sense. This is particularly true in the Oriental culture, where we can feel it. It may be different for our friends from the Western world, but in the Asian or Oriental culture, we can feel and we can sense the spiritual world. And in many events, I have already said that it's very close to the ideals of the socialism, and it's a world where we can have equality and fairness for everyone. Everyone takes care of everyone else. These ideals are quite similar. The founders of the socialism envision the ideals which are very close to the principles of sustainability that we are moving towards today. So I think if we can have all of these, then we can enhance our competitiveness. So the topic we are discussing today is corporate governance in a changing world. To this end, we need to have a professional governance framework. Yesterday, Madam Tang shared her ideas with the successors in Thanh Hóa. Now we have a new business model and system. It's not the top-down or hierarchical. Instead, it is a network model where everyone interacts with somebody else. Leaders do not see themselves as the owner, but as the true leader, inspiring and leading the organization. So that's the sustainable model. We have a network rather than a top-down model or a hierarchy. With the network, we can empower people and tap into their creativity and innovation. We do not turn each and every member of the organization into robot. We have to do the other way around. We have to make it more humane. We have to make technologies more human-oriented or humane. These are critical ideas we need to consider when we design our corporate structure, given the changes, the fast and tremendous changes in the world today. We have already responded to COVID-19. One thing has already become clear. Vietnam's economy resilience and the resilience of people are great. We do not have strong technological base. However, we have very strong resiliency to the crisis, to the pandemic. And it was tested and proven even during the wartime, where we remained high economic growth, and Vietnam is expected to be one of the 5 economies with the positive and high economic growth. So that means our economy and our businesses are very strongly resilient, given those challenges and changes. Over the past years, VCCI has already supported the government agencies and business community to develop corporate governance structure. We have the PCI. PCI index is the guiding principle and also a driver for reforms in Vietnam. Without the PCI, we couldn't have seen the strong performance by local governments and agencies in Vietnam, around Vietnam. So this is what we have already heard from the business community and also from the people. We also have CSI in addition to the PCI. PSI has already been in place for 5 years now. We bring corporate sustainability index to the business community. CSI is one of the solutions to strengthen the corporate governance, allowing them to better respond to and adapt to changes. VCCI, with the Deloitte, we have already published a publication or handbook for business to respond, recover, and thrive during and after the crisis. Madam Tang and I have worked very closely together in this project, and I'm sure that it's going to be a very good product for all of you. We will develop the governance tool for businesses, which will be upgraded on a regular basis to be adapting to new technologies. This is the very first joint handbook that VCCI and Deloitte published. We will continue to introduce new tools, instruments for our business community. I always emphasize in all events, including the sessions of the National Assembly, we have quite a lot of businesses in Vietnam, even household businesses, even though they are unincorporated, they are family businesses. If we include 5.4 household businesses in Vietnam, then we have around 6 million businesses in operation. However, the quality of enterprises remain questionable. So the key here is to improve the quality of our corporate sector. To this end, we need to strengthen the governance structure, governance for our companies and enterprises. We have Nguyễn Ái Quốc School in the party system to nurture our young and potential political leaders. And now we need to have the same system for our business sector so that we can upgrade and enhance their capabilities and also governance that are relevant to Vietnam's circumstances. I welcome the participation of our friends from Eurocham, AmCham, and the top businesses, including Deloitte. I hope that you will continue to work with us to join us in an ambitious program to upgrade our corporate sector. I have strong confidence in the resilience of our businesses. They are so good at responding to and adapting to changes. And their resilience, their humanity will be the solid foundation to improve their corporate governance and to align with international corporate standards. And hopefully, Vietnam will be among the top in ASEAN in terms of corporate competitiveness, and we can turn Vietnam into a strong and prosperous country as Uncle Ho or Ho Chi Minh once dreamed of. And hopefully we will have a good discussion and dialogue today on the topic of corporate governance in a changing world. And hopefully we will come up with solutions and best practices. And I'm sure that the journey that we join together, we will join the government in that journey to turn Vietnam into one of the top 3 countries in ASEAN with very strong national competitiveness. And the corporate governance will be the key to improving our competitiveness. So I highly appreciate your assistance and support, and once again, I'd like to thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Vũ Tien Loc, VCCI Chairman and VBCSD Chairman. In his remarks, Dr. Tien Loc has already emphasized three main ideas. Well, number one, you can see here the 17 SDGs. It shows the commitment and also the partnership. We can work together for a better world and better Vietnam. Dr. Tien Loc also emphasized the partnership and how we can work together to boost our resilience. Ladies and gentlemen, COVID-19 has already brought about unprecedented changes with implications. So far, VCCI has already worked with Deloitte to publish a handbook for business to respond, recover, and thrive during and after the crisis. And now I'd like to give the floor to Mrs. Ha Thị Thu Thanh, VBCSD Vice Chair and Chairwoman of Member Council of Deloitte Vietnam, to talk about this publication. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Vu Tien Loc, for your welcoming remarks. I very much agree that corporate governance in a changing world should be the right topic and the right theme for us today. We have already talked quite a lot about growth, and recently we have seen the change in the perception. We not just focus on economic growth, but also sustainable growth. Sustainability involves the interaction between the business community and the natural and social settings or environment. When we are faced with a crisis, we know what we are passionate for and what we are not good at. Well, last March, Dr. Vu Tien Loc, VCCI Chairman and VBCSD, has already initiated one idea to publish a handbook for enterprises to respond and recover and thrive during and after the crisis. When we talk about sustainability, we think of the cycle with three elements: respond, recover, and thrive. Respond, the purpose of respond is to achieve thriving, and recover also means to prepare for the thriving. So we not just survive, but also need to thrive, and that's why the handbook was designed and developed. When we talk about sustainability, we talk about the interaction among those three elements. But what about governance? And how can we measure sustainability of a corporate entity? It's quite easy to see the economic growth and recovery. And for years, it's still very confusing between economic growth and development. Is that true? Well, it's partially true. But it's not completely true. Well, Dr. Loc has already referred to CSI Corporate Sustainability Index. It consists of 100 indicators, economic interaction is just part of it. 80% of the CSI indicators. Later on, Mr. Ving will talk about it. 80% of the indicators in the CSI have to do with the compliance, and this is how enterprises can differentiate themselves. VCCI and VBCSD have worked hard to communicate this message and to work closely with the Ho Chi Minh City Stock Exchange to include sustainability reporting in the report as required by the stock exchange. Businesses can use the handbook to respond to the crisis and recover from the crisis. But of course, it requires changes in the perception and mindset. As Dr. Loc has already said, in a changing world today, one thing that remains constant, that is change itself. Each person, each nation can only respond to and recover well if they have very good governance. I mean, internal governance, governance from within. So, in this handbook, we emphasize three elements. First of all, corporate governance in the middle, but what is more important is the resilience of the leaders. We have already been concerned about the disruption of the supply chains or lack of funding or capital, but it seems that no one has already thought about the importance of a leader, the resiliency of a leader, especially during the crisis. So the resilience of a owner or of a leader will be very critical, and it shows how a business interacts with the society and the environment. So if we want to make the best use of the handbook, then you need to change your mindset. The corporate governance has to be improved from within, and there are three elements here. Number one, resilience of the leaders. Number two, corporate culture. Sustainability is a journey. It creates and improves the value of the business. As Dr. Loc said, we aim for the sustainability of the value creation system, where we can see the values of ourselves and how we can protect them with the corporate system so that we can move towards sustainability. Leaders of enterprises of all sizes are aware of it. But the question is whether they have the full awareness of the importance of governance or not. There must be the interactions among those elements, especially the corporate culture and also the adoption of technologies in the Industry 4.0. So we expect you to have a change in your mindset when you read and interpret this handbook. The handbook is published by Deloitte, a top consulting firm in Vietnam. We celebrate 30th anniversary in Vietnam and 175th anniversary globally. Deloitte is committed to working closely with VCCI and VBCSD. We are also a member of AmCham, and we're very honored to have AmCham President joining us today so that we could promote and advocate for change in the mindset and in the perception to have the right corporate governance. Each and every business can make use of this handbook, and they can see it as a tool for them to evaluate themselves, where they are before, during, and after the crisis. We have the guidelines, how businesses can respond to the crisis, and third, how they can adopt those principles in the real world, how they can identify opportunities, how they can strengthen the resilience of their leaders, and how they can manage stakeholder expectations. There are 6 principles to crisis manage. The first one is laying the foundation. Number 2, recovering and growing revenue. Third, reducing and strictly managing cost. Number 4, optimizing assets. Number 4, accelerating digital transformation. And number 5, managing stakeholder expectations. Actually, in a crisis, even leaderships are also in crisis. So it's very critical for stakeholders to work together and also to manage their expectations. In a normal situation, enterprises have to actively engage their stakeholders, and it becomes more important to engage them during the crisis. And that's why we need to focus on the management of stakeholder expectations. What matters to the businesses here lie in principles 2, 3, and 4, having to do with finance, revenue, cost management. In the world today, businesses also need to be adaptive to the technological change, and that's why digital transformation needs to be sped up. Here you can see how enterprises can apply the crisis management principles. Each and every business needs to analyze the opportunities and turn them into a reality. We may see challenges only, but the question is how we can turn challenges into opportunities for us. The governance experts, we actively find opportunities from the challenges. There are always 2 sides of the coin. While we are faced with the challenge, we still can see and find the opportunity. And we have to proactively identify the opportunities out of the challenge. Second, if we want to have sustainable corporate governance, then we need to have strong resilience in leadership. The resilience must be evidenced not only in the aspiration but also in the action of the leaders in good and also bad times. When they interact with the stakeholders, with their workforce being the top priority, followed by their clients, in sustainability and also in governance, we can see the importance of trust. A leader must have trust. A company must have trust. That means stakeholders must have trust in the company, especially during the crisis. Workers, suppliers, or partners, or banks, whether they can accompany through the difficult time or not, depends very much on the trust that they have in the company itself. So trust is one of the critical values of a company in its corporate culture. It involves the human-to-human relationship. Well, there are a lot of details. I hope that You can find those interesting details when you read them. We put leadership first, putting their vision and orientation first. Actually, you can refer to our handbook for further information. In the handbook, we also have a section on the importance of trust. When we develop this handbook, we have very strong engagement of the research team along with the VCCI chairman and also the VCCI Secretary General and VBCSD Vice Executive Chairman. Also our strong team from Deloitte. Well, you can see a lot of expertise and knowledge have already been put into this handbook. And I'm sure that when you read and make use of this handbook, first of all, you need to change your mindset. We also have other publications for your information. You can use the QR code to have the access to those publications both in English and in Vietnamese. And I'm sure that this is the very first step in a series of publications that we will jointly develop with VBCSD in support of the business community. We plan to work with the VBCSD to provide training to leaders so that they could be more confident with the sustainable corporate governance. And again, I'd like to thank VBCSD, VCCI, especially Dr. Loc and members of the VBCSD for your support in this exercise. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much, Mrs. Thị Thu Thanh, for your presentation. I hope that with the reputation of Deloitte and the contribution from you yourself, you can continue to support our business community. And this publication is available at the front desk. And now I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Bino Jacob. He will share the experience of Nestle in the response to the COVID-19. Thank you.
Dr. Loc, Chairman of VCCI, Mr. Win, General Secretary of VCCI, members of VCCI, VBCSD, and my friends, good morning. My name is Binu Jacob, and I handle the Nestle business here in Vietnam. As Dr. Loc mentioned, one point that he mentioned that struck me was, he said, you can only control yourself. You cannot control what happens outside. So I will use this principle just to highlight what we as a company, Nestle, here in Vietnam did to manage internally the crisis that hit everyone in the world. So some of you who don't know about Nestle Vietnam, we've been here post-reunification since 1992 through our first joint venture with the government of Long An, where we launched La Vie Waters. Since then, 1995, we set up our own 100% subsidiary here in Vietnam, which is now Nestle Vietnam. We have over 2,800 full-time employees, and through our distributors, we also indirectly employ more than 10,000 people in Vietnam. We have about 6 factories in all, and we have invested about 700 million Swiss francs, which is roughly 700 million US dollars. And some of you may not know this, but we are by far the largest buyers of coffee from Vietnam. We procure 20 to 25% of everything that Vietnam produces for our Nestle operations worldwide. Many times people have asked me, can you explain what this company is all about? What do you really believe in? And the best way to explain this for me is to say that we are the good food, good life company. Now, what does this mean? We believe that food has the power to change lives. Good nutrition for children, good nutrition for aging people, good practices in agriculture can transform lives. And this is what our company is all about. And we do this through our core value of respect. If there's one value that we all believe in, it's respect. It's respect for ourselves, it's respect for people around us, it's respect for the community, and it's respect for the planet. So just like many of you, we also experienced COVID very, very rapidly. And one of the first things we did, taking cues from how quickly the government of Vietnam acted, is to do the same internally. So very early on, we set up a project task force that we internally called STORM. And STORM had 5 and +1 priorities. So I'll take you through what we did on each of these priorities one by one. So the first one, and the most important one for us, was taking care of our people and their safety. So almost every day, without fail, for the last 6 months, every day in the morning, we have a crisis call at 8:30. No matter what, rain or shine, we are all there connected to talk about how our people are doing during these times. In our factories, by the end of February, all our factories had changed their layouts, changed their setups to make sure that all our employees in the factories were safe, maintaining 2-meter distance, providing masks, providing face shields, keeping separators between the factory lines. Everything was done by the end of February. Communication is one of the key things. Almost every day we had communication going out to our employees, and every week we had a live stream talking to all the employees across Nestlé Vietnam, live, answering their Q&As directly to me and to my management team. And this was a way to keep some calm in the whole chaos. But the thing that we are most proud of is business did get impacted. We had quite a lot of hit on the business. But yet, very early on, we took a call. No matter what happens to the business, we will not lay off a single employee. Not one employee worldwide was laid off as a result of this crisis. And not only that, here in Vietnam, we took the call to say, we increase their salaries, not reduce. We increase the salaries of every single employee in the month of April. The second stream, the more difficult part, is product supply. In a crisis, we all know, we produce about 90% of everything that we sell in Vietnam, here in Vietnam, through our 6 factories. But the reality is there are quite a lot of raw materials that have to be imported to make this happen. So the stream that was looking at product supply was working on a business continuity plan. We worked with the suppliers to get visibility of their availability, and not only at the first level, but also the second level, the suppliers of the suppliers, to make sure that the next 3 months, they had enough raw materials to cover us, and we covered it very early on, and we made some assurances, and we got those commitments very early on. The second is supply risk. The assessment of what would be available and how to prioritize this was also done by the team. The third and the most difficult part was demand response. Business, almost every day we were tracking. Certain categories were falling like 9 pins. Certain categories were going up. And so every day we were taking stock of the sales for the previous day and then adjusting our factory production for the next week. And this was a dynamic, this was totally different from the way we were operating before. Before we were operating on a monthly basis. The same exercise had to be done every day. Ms. Tan also mentioned that crisis is a time of opportunity. And for us, the single biggest opportunity that we saw was exports. Because our operations here in Vietnam were fairly well controlled, thanks to the government. Not a single day of production loss happened during this time. But the reality is many of the markets outside Vietnam had a tough time. They could not produce, factories were shut down. And so many markets, we reached out to many markets offering our services, our supply to them. And as a result, in this period, our exports grew dramatically, over 20% increase in the exports, especially on coffee. The third part was working with our distributors and our sales, frontline salespeople. They faced the most difficult job because despite the COVID, they still had to go in, day out, and meet the stores. So what we did was, one, to make sure that they had enough stock. So at the distributor level, we were tracking their stocks on a daily basis to make sure by SKU they had enough stock. The second was the support that we lent them. So all the frontline distributor salesmen, they were not our employees. Distributor salesmen, we gave them disruption allowance on a daily basis to make sure, because their lives were disrupted. Many of them could not travel by public transport. They didn't have access to proper food because many restaurants were shut. To make up for that, we made sure that we supported them every possible way that we could. The fourth one was also an opportunity, and at the same time a responsibility. Brands have a role to play, not only in convincing consumers to buy our products, but also in spreading the right values. One of the biggest brands that we have is Milo. Milo is all about energy and sports for young children. So, but in a time like this, kids are sitting at home. At the same time, kids need to be active. They need to be energetic. So as a brand, we changed our communication, and the whole campaign that we launched during a 4-month period was, stay at home, but don't stay idle. And we gave them solutions how you can stay active at home by making your dustbin into a makeshift basketball hoop, by using a table as a table tennis thing. So we ran campaigns and education things to make the mothers realize that just because the kid is staying at home doesn't mean the kid has no opportunity to play. The same with Maggie. Maggie is also a great time for the families to come together and cook. So the whole campaign was cook to connect. And we had virtual campaigns connecting people from one location to another, exchanging recipes virtually, and then sharing it through videos. And Nescafe was all about be your own barista at home, because people were missing going out of the coffee shop and drinking a nice cup of coffee. But the reality is you can still do that at home, especially when you have more time. The fifth stream is the one that we all feel very, very proud of. Is we took a very active role very early on to see how can we support the government and the communities that we work with. So during this time, we donated about 37 billion Vietnamese dong worth of goods and cash to the communities that we work with in 8 provinces across Vietnam. We also provided masks to the government and to the hospitals in and around the areas where we operate. And last but not the least, after the first COVID wave and the small out-of-home customers were reopening, we realized that these are the most hard hit of the lot. The street hawk vendors by the roadside, the small tuck shops inside the schools and inside the colleges and universities, they were hit the most because they were shut down for almost 2 months. So how do we support them? We came back with a welcome plan for all of them, and we gave them free product. Free, absolutely free, no strings attached. So in the beginning when we did this, many of them were questioning, why would someone give something free? And we said it's absolutely free, no strings attached. And also some of them had aging products. We took back the aging products, replaced it with fresh ones. Again, no questions asked. So as a result of this, I think my personal belief is that yes, business has suffered. But I strongly believe that companies who do the right thing during times like this will be paid back in the long term. So a few learnings that I just wanted to share with you. The first is, crisis results in chaos. No doubt about it. The teams in the beginning had no clue what to do because it hit them like it had never hit them before. So the role of leadership is really to bring structure, clarity, and calm to the whole situation. So Project Storm was our structured approach. Every stream had detailed tasks and activities on a daily basis, which we were reviewing on a day-to-day basis. The second is the principle. The principle that we adopted is people first, everything else second. We did not discuss business at all for 2 months. We did not. The only thing we discussed was how do we take care of our people? How do we do the right thing? Not once was I questioned by our headquarters on profit. Not once. Because the company said, do the right thing, and then think about the consequences later. The third part, as I said, is communicate, communicate, communicate. There is no such thing as over-communication. We were repeating the same communication over and over again, but because the reality is not many people understand when you just do it once and you expect everybody to. It doesn't happen. Fourth one is acting fast. There were many times when we had no clue what to do. We had no clue because we didn't have information. But you just need to take a call and go on with it, even if it's not perfect. The last one is, again, a principle, but I believe the right one. More than ever, I think a crisis is the time to give and not to take. So, as I said, we didn't think about sales. We didn't think about business. Business dropped, but we still did not prevent us. It did not prevent us from doing the right thing and giving back to the community, giving back to the employees, giving back to the government in need, because that's our responsibility. So I hope with this this sharing, some of you may have benefited even a little bit. But even if all you have taken out is one small piece from this whole deck, I think I feel happy and thankful to share this with you. I hope to learn more from all of you in the coming year or so as the new co-chair of VBCSD. Thank you very much.
Một lần nữa xin cảm ơn tất cả các bạn đã chú ý lắng nghe. Có thể nói 2 tháng vừa rồi rất là khó khăn đối với chúng tôi, cũng như là đối với tất cả mọi người khác. Và tôi rất là vui và tự hào khi thấy rằng Nestle đã ứng phó rất là tốt với bối cảnh của Covid-19. Thank you very much, Mr. Bino Chekhov, and I really like what Bino says. Crisis is the time for us to give back, to create values, and also to move towards sustainability. Ladies and gentlemen, Nestle so far has already supported 48 billion Vietnam dong to the community. Ladies and gentlemen, apart from the PCI, VBCSD over the last years, we have already guided our business community to embrace sustainability. We worked with our local and international experts to develop CSI Corporate Sustainability Index starting in 2014, and the Prime Minister and the government have already allowed to use CSI in ranking businesses starting in 2016. CSI has and will continue to have good influence and impacts on the business community, allowing businesses to better respond to the crisis and challenges. And to better understand the directions from the government and also the use of CSI, I would like to welcome all of you to the panel discussion now. I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Nguyễn Quang Vinh, VCCI General Secretary, and VBCSD Vice Executive Chairman to moderate the discussion. Thank you. Your Excellency, Dr. Vũ Tien Loc, VCCI Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to be here to be the moderator of the panel discussion today. I would like to invite our panelists to join us in the panel discussion on a very interesting and challenging topic, and that is sustainable corporate management in a changing world, changing society. I'd like to invite Mrs. Trần Anh Đào, Deputy Director General, Ho Chi Minh City Stock Exchange. Mr. Pino Chekhov, General Director of Nestle Vietnam and Co-Chair of VBCSD. Mr. Dennis Brunetti, President of Ericsson Vietnam, Myanmar, Cambodia, and Laos, Vice Chair of VBCSD. Mrs. Cao Thị Ngọc Dung, Chairwoman of Board of Directors of Phú Nhuận Jewelry Company, PNJ. Mrs. Lê Thị Ngọc Mỹ, Head of Sustainable Development, Heineken Vietnam. And Mrs. Đào Thúy Hà, Director of Marketing, Trafaco. Well, please be seated before we start our discussion. Well, I don't know how many times we have already organized the VSF, but I am often assigned to be the moderator of the panel discussion. Last night, I read the documents and also bio of our panelists, and I'm sure that the bios of our panelists have already been made available on our website, and you may have already read their bios. Apart from the participants and panelists joining us physically, we also have around 300 participants joining us virtually, and the audience tuning in to the live stream program. I realize that the panel discussion today brings together the top experts, the corporate governance experts, executives in this field, and we are meeting in a very beautiful season of Hanoi, the autumn, and we discuss a challenging topic facing a business entity. Corporate governance is a challenge, but what is more challenging is how to make it sustainable. Mrs. Tang made it very clear in her presentation about the handbook. Well, VCCI works with Deloitte to publish such a handbook. Sustainability does not only mean profit, but also the advancement and the progress of the company, along with the development of the country. So that means we need to generate new value and to move towards sustainability. Well, this is what I feel very proud of when I'm sitting here to discuss the topic of sustainability with our executives in the front line. As Dr. Loc has already said, the top-down model is no longer the norm. Leaders now need to lead the company through changes towards sustainability and prosperity, not only for themselves but also for the community. So I have the first question for Mrs. Sung. How could you please share with us how you can put sustainable development at the heart of the P&J's business? Could you please share with us that point? And second, over the past years, P&J has enjoyed very high ranking in terms of CSI. So could you please share with us your experience in your journey to sustainability? So over to you, Mrs. Cao Thị Ngọc Dung. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Vinh. Very good morning to all of you, Dr. Loc, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. I am very honored to be here today in a forum that will benefit our business community. Dr. Loc said that Madam Tang and I have already been participated in a wide range of events like this. As Mr. Vinh said, P&J has already enjoyed very high ranking in CSI over the past years. I just would like to share with you some of our experience. I feel very proud because P&J from day one has already embraced a value very much relevant to sustainability. We include the community and the environment in our core values, in our business operations. They are very much relevant to the three elements of sustainability. So this is what we have already been aware of from day one. And we have already naturally embraced SDGs. Of course, we need to measure and quantify our performance by benchmarking against the indicators, and we feel very proud because we have already been embracing it very early on. I really appreciate the point made by Dr. Loc. The most important value lies in the culture, the corporate culture, and that's why we focus very much on in-house training. the external environment is changing, but what we need to be firm and resilient. It has to do with the competence and the resilience of our workforce and our leadership. So we see corporate culture as the solid foundation of our company. This is what we embark on. Despite the COVID-19 pandemic, and Mrs. Tang has already shared her presentation about sustainability. Well, we see the importance of corporate culture as an element of sustainability. I agree that resilient leaders are so critical during the times of uncertainty. I often share with Madame Tang that resilience of leadership is the key factor behind the success of a company through the difficult times. I also would like to add that during the COVID-19, resilience becomes ever more important and clear. We put people first and also corporate culture first. We not only have our own workforce but also our clients and suppliers. We always put people first. I just would like to reiterate that the resilience of leadership is very important. It's one of the factors behind the success of a company in any crisis, in any challenge. At a forum a week ago, some people asked me what the challenges would be during the crisis. When I respond to that question, I said that I see more opportunities rather than challenges during the COVID-19. The first opportunity is that we can reflect and we can see ourselves in the mirror to see our strengths and weaknesses. And number two, the strategies that we can take to manage through the crisis. Yeah, thank you very much, Mrs. Zung, for your sharing of experience as the chairwoman of the board of directors of P&J. P&J are ranked among the top 10 in Vietnam in terms of CSI Corporate Sustainability Index, and P&J also has already been ranked very high at the regional level. So, Mrs. Sung, do you have any recommendations to share with our business community and our audience here today? Well, as I told you many times, I'm very appreciative of the sustainable development orientation of VCCI and VBCSD. We are more aware of sustainability. We see the importance of corporate culture, sustainable corporate culture. I joined many associations and organizations, and I know that it's critical to raise the awareness of the companies about sustainability. I'm very happy to see the publication jointly developed by VCCI and Deloitte. Mrs. Tang also shared a lot of ideas with us during this process of drafting the handbook. So I suggest that VCI should share the handbook more through different events or forum, so that the business community could be fully aware of the sustainability as the pillar, as the foundation to manage through the crisis. And it should be part of the reporting or assessment process. When I was in Singapore, there was a question from the audience about whether or not we have already included the sustainability in our assessment or not. Well, it's not always the case in all businesses when it comes to the inclusion of sustainability in their reporting. So I'm hopeful that we can put this principle of sustainability first and turn it into a practice. Our economy can only be sustainable when our companies are sustainable. So we need to inspire, we need to convey the message to the business community so that they will be on the same page. They will embrace sustainability. They see the benefits. They see the interest in embracing sustainability. You can see the cycle with the three elements, but at first people seem to focus only on economic benefits, but there are other pillars that we need to pay attention to as well. For example, social and environmental pillars. So I think VCCI should share the information as much as possible with the business community so that we can convey the spirit of sustainability to the corporate sector in Vietnam. Yeah, thank you very much for your suggestion. So what is important is to put in place a framework for enterprises to embark on sustainable development. So I now have a question for Mrs. Ha. What are the keys to success or success factors for Trafaco in your journey to sustainability? And I also have the same question for you. Do you have any recommendations to share with our audience today and also the government so that we could further promote sustainable development in the business sector? Yeah, Dr. Vũ Tien Loc, VCCI Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Trafaco Ally, to thank you very much for inviting me to be here today at the forum. Well, Trafaco has already become a big company from a very humble starting point. At Trafaco, we have three pillars to move towards sustainability: economic development, corporate CSR, corporate social responsibility, and also the environment. And we make it clear in our supply chain. We have the full chain ranging from materials production to manufacturing to sales and distribution. So we focus on the quality of the product and at the same time ensuring the sustainability of our company. Trafaco produces the products from herbal materials. We develop the herbal plantations across Vietnam, meeting VICP standards in our herbal plantations. Trafaco source the materials from the mountainous areas, for example, artichoke, so that we could have a stable supply for our production. We work closely with the ethnic minority people to plant herbs. We bring technologies and standards to those mountainous areas so that they could meet those standards. We also help them by a wide range of measures, and we now have artichoke meeting the VCP standards. We have very good and stable source of materials for production. We are not affected by the COVID-19 crisis in terms of material supply because we are committed to buying materials from farmers, and they have trust in our attraction. We also bring technologies to farmers, and as a result, they can generate higher income, enjoy better living conditions. So for Trafaco, what's most important is to take care of our community. We bring herbal products to make sure that people are in good health conditions, and we work closely with the communities to produce the materials to help them improve their livelihood as well. So I think there are many other factors, but this is one of the key to success. Yeah, Trafaco is very famous, and VCCI works very closely with Trafaco in developing business models when you work with the poor people. I think Nestle and other companies are embracing the same model, and I can say that it's also one of the keys to success here. So do you have any recommendations to share with the business community or government agencies today? How can we make it better? To share the best practices and good business models? Well, Trafaco has chosen sustainability as the journey in our business operations. It is an end, not just the means to an end. So we need to have better and more professional corporate governance. We have already had access to Csr Indicators, and then CSI as introduced by the VCCI and VBCSD. CSI indicators are very good because they not just allow us to assess our profitability, but also other dimensions of our operations, including employment, energy consumption, and also perception about environmental protection. So it is a very comprehensive set of indicators. I think that other businesses, if they want to embrace sustainability, then they should follow the CSI, and it will allow you to improve your operations on a regular basis. For Trafaco, CSI is a tool to communicate with the community, with our shareholders. It's also a tool for Trafaco to identify risk and how we can mitigate or respond to risk better. We integrate CSI in our corporate sustainability reporting. So that we can make our strong commitment to the community in terms of sustainable development. it allows us to have a vivid and more comprehensive picture of sustainability when we communicate with our stakeholders and especially our shareholders. So this is what we have already done and continue to do so in the future. Our improvement is attributed to this. We have SDG 9. Given the industry 4.0, we need to benchmark our performance against those indicators and also the SDGs. Yeah, thank you very much, Mrs. Ha, for your sharing of experience and practices. As Mrs. Zung said, we need to be committed to sustainability models. As Dr. Loc said earlier, enterprises can reflect on and benchmark themselves against the CSR indicators to see where they are. And now I have a question for Bino Jacob, co-chair of VBCSD and also Director General of Nestle Vietnam. I highly appreciate the support by Nestle. Well, before VBCSD was established, we already heard of the strong support by Nestle to our poor people. So what drive you globally and locally to make such a strong commitment to sustainable development? And what will you do to turn your commitment into concrete actions globally and also here in Vietnam? Thank you. Vâng, xin cảm ơn ông Nguyễn Quang Vinh đã đặt câu hỏi.
Yeah, it all boils down to our core belief. Nestle has been around for 150 years, and we believe that we will be here for another 150 years at least. So there's a saying in English, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. In a similar way, I feel sustainability has a similar kind of relation. If you just want to focus on short-term business results, you don't need sustainability. But if you want to go far and be a company that is here, that makes history, that leaves a legacy behind, you have no choice. You have to focus on sustainable growth. And as a company, we don't see the disconnect between doing business and focusing on sustainability. So if you fundamentally believe that these two things go together, whether there is COVID or whether there's no COVID, the sustainability priority will not change and should not change. And to answer your question on concretely, what kind of action should we be taking? I think, one, I would like to commend VCCI, VBCSD for taking this action and driving this corporate sustainability index, because I feel that by doing this, we are putting accountability and responsibility squarely on the corporate. And the corporate has a role to play in this, and I think all of us need to feel that urge to drive sustainability from the inside. And I see VBCSD as a catalyst for doing this. Now coming back to internal, because the point on you cannot change the world, but you can only start by changing yourself. For me, it has to start from the top. Sustainability is not an afterthought. It's not something that you can delegate to people below and expect somebody will do it. I spend 20% of my time on sustainability. And our global CEO, I know for a fact, also spends more than 20% of his time on sustainability. So when the people start seeing leaders spending time on sustainability, automatically the message will go down very quickly. because action speaks louder than words. No matter what I say, if people don't see me spending time on this, nobody will take it seriously. So the first step is start from the top, set the tone. Concretely, the other thing we do as a company is we have a sustainability council that meets for half a day every month. And this council has multiple streams under this. There's plastic sustainability, there's waste-free future, there's water sustainability, employment sustainability, and so on and so forth. So each of these streams has a stream lead. And that stream lead is accountable to make sure that all the actions that we make as part of our roadmap is done. The third one, which we are still doing, is make a 5-year roadmap. For the next 5 years, concretely here in Nestlé Vietnam, what are we going to do? And this is visioning the future. And then you need to back it up with actions, because all this is only words, and blah, blah, blah will not work if people don't see active measures coming out. So during the COVID, just as an example, plastic sustainability is one of our key focus areas. So we all know that there is a brand called Milo sold in packs with plastic straws. We took a call very early to say, we're going to eliminate this plastic straw. And this is not an easy decision, because a paper straw costs 4 times more than a plastic straw, 4 times. It brings down our profitability significantly. But we said it's the right thing to do. And we did it. In the middle of COVID, we did it. We ensured that we got supplies of paper straws, and we did it starting with Milo Breakfast, with Nesvita, and so on and so forth. So we're starting that journey. Does it make a difference? We surely think it does. By the end of this year, we will be putting 10 tons less of plastic into the environment, which otherwise would have gone into landfill or would have gone into marine pollution or litter. On coffee, we have distributed 38 million plantlets of high-yield, disease-resistant coffee plantlets to farmers in Central Highlands. And during the COVID, we still did it, no matter what. So when we start talking about these things and taking the right actions, people realize that sustainability is not something that is a good to do or a nice to do, but it is a must do.
Xin cảm ơn ông Binu. Có thể nói là Nestlé đã làm được.
Nestlé has already done quite a lot with good business practices towards sustainability. What I appreciate most is, first of all, commitments from the top, committed to sustainable development, and second, CEOs and global CEOs spend at least 20% on sustainable development, and it will have a positive spillover. Yeah, thank you very much, Binu, for your sharing of sustainability and good business practices today. We can see very strong interaction among those elements. And I have a question for Mr. Brunetti, President of Ericsson Vietnam, Myanmar, Laos, and Cambodia. He has a lot of experience in communication, innovation, and also technological change. So what are the recommendations or advice you can share with us? I know that you have many years of working in Vietnam. So what are recommendations that you can share with Vietnamese businesses during the COVID-19 and uncertainties that may arise in the future? What could be your advice in terms of digital transformation, adoption of 5G, and also transformation in terms of corporate governance? What could be your advice for our businesses, especially SMEs? Vâng, xin cảm ơn ông Vinh. Ericsson.
I'm 144 years, founded in Sweden in 1876, and in Vietnam since 1993. So we built the first 2G networks with Mobifone and Vinaphone, and then later with Viettel and Vietnam Mobile, 3G and then 4G. We connected Vietnam basically. In those days, of course, most of you would remember, or some of you would remember, before mobile telephony, there wasn't much by way of means of communication between people, especially people living in rural countryside areas or mountainous minority areas. But through 2G, GSM in the early 90s, people were able to communicate. It didn't matter whether you were living in urban areas like Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City or rural countryside or mountainous areas. Everyone could start at least communicating via mobile telephony. And then, of course, with 3G, we connected people to the internet, broadband connectivity. Formed Vietnam in a big way, and Vietnam, of course, then became a middle-income economy in 2010, the very same year that 3G was launched, actually, in Vietnam. Then with 4G, we saw the advent of new companies, enterprises, a lot of new revenue streams for operators through things like Uber or Grab in Vietnam, and Facebook, obviously, and Google Maps, and Airbnb, and Spotify, and all these new industries and new jobs were created. And clearly what we see now with 5G coming to Vietnam sometime soon, we are doing trials at the moment, but certainly with commercial deployments of 5G coming in Vietnam very soon, what will happen then is it won't just be a transformation of society, but just like Dr. Loc said earlier, it's a changing world in terms of business, the economy, and the environment. And with 5G, it will actually touch on society, as well as industry and enterprises, as well as the environment. In fact, when we talk about the pillars, Ms. Zoom mentioned earlier, the 3 pillars of society, economic, and environment, we fully agree with you. And through 5G, many people don't probably appreciate this, but 5G is more of an enterprise platform than a consumer platform. So 3G and 4G were more geared towards consumers. And with 5G and the Internet of Things, and automation, artificial intelligence, and big data analytics, machine learning, all these technologies will be enabled increasingly through a critical national infrastructure called 5G. And as we've built roads and tunnels and bridges and all these airports and seaports across cities across Vietnam in order to sustain and develop and grow our economy, 5G will be the infrastructure, the digital infrastructure that will enable smart cities. And that will in turn enable SMEs, small and medium enterprises, to become more efficient as long as they adopt that digital transformation journey through 5G. So it's super important because in Vietnam, of course, we all appreciate SMEs make up about 95% of companies, and about 90+% of employees or workforce, and of course about 50–60% of the GDP of Vietnam. So SMEs are the backbone of Vietnam's economy and Vietnam's future. So with the increased adoption of digital transformation, becoming more efficient, productive and competitive, SMEs will be able to further grow and Vietnam's economy will further develop. And very importantly, of course, we need to appreciate and understand that change has never been as fast as it is today. We can all appreciate that, right? Change is actually moving faster and accelerating at a greater pace today than it ever has before. But one thing's for sure, change will never be as slow as it is today again. In the future, it'll only accelerate and accelerate faster and faster. So through the adoption of digital transformation and technology, through a humane lens, which is what Dr. Loc was also referring to earlier, making sure that we marry technology with humanity and nature, making sure that technology is not the end, but the means, as Ms. Ha mentioned earlier as well. So we use technology for the benefit of society, the economy, and the environment. So that's super important. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dennis, for your sharing of recommendations with our business community, especially SMEs and also digital transformation. So do you have any advice for the government of Vietnam to accelerate the support for SMEs to adopt digital transformation and also to embrace digital economy in Vietnam. Vâng ạ.
Congratulate the government of Vietnam for putting a strong focus, especially over the last 10 years, the 2011 to 2020 socio-economic strategic development plan had a strong focus obviously on economic reforms and other policies that helped SMEs become more competitive and more efficient, not only locally but internationally. And clearly now what we see is the government is putting increased focus also on the adoption of science, technology and innovation. The government recognises that the next wave of socio-economic development in Vietnam will be driven not by low-cost, labour-intensive manufacturing necessarily, but more so by the adoption of science, technology, innovation, Industry 4.0, making production, manufacturing, as well as other industries more efficient. So clearly the adoption of 5G will make a big impact on SMEs in Vietnam, and it's very important to have a trusted technology, of course, because trust is super important. Madam Tang mentioned that earlier in her speech, and I think also Binu mentioned it in his. So with 5G, it's a super powerful technology. Anything that benefits from being connected will be connected. So it's important to have a trusted technology, and Ericsson puts a lot of focus on security and network security in our technology. It's very important also to understand that Vietnam is now at a very, very sweet spot in its historic journey. You have new generation free trade agreements, such as the EVFTA that's been ratified since 1st of August, as well as the CPTPP, and many other free trade agreements that Vietnam has had over the last few years, about 13 or 14 in total. Together with 5G, and together with the population, the golden age really, in terms of youth and maturing population in terms of education in science, technology, engineering, mathematics. The government's putting focus, the Ministry of Planning and Investment, in particular on the National Innovation Centre, for example, startup entrepreneurship, and the great work that the VBCSD does and VCCI does. And happy 10-year anniversary, by the way, for the this year, for the VBCSD. Clearly the great work that you do in helping prepare SMEs, in really focusing on sustainability, in making sure that, of course, companies think about the long-term future, not just quick gains today in the short term. So from that perspective, Ericsson fully supports, fully endorses, and is fully aligned with the government's strategy moving forward in adopting science, technology and innovation, and helping SMEs adopt that, and helping universities increase their education and training towards science, technology, engineering, mathematics as well.
Cảm ơn ông Dennis đã chia sẻ những cái ý kiến rất là bổ ích đối với cộng đồng doanh nghiệp.
Dennis, for your recommendation, how the government can support businesses in the digital transformation, and what the government can do to better support enterprises in Vietnam in the transformation and also digital economy. And this year is so important for VCCI and also for VBCSD. The reason is that we are celebrating the 10-year anniversary of VBCSD on the 10th of December 2020. Our theme is 10 years of championship in our operations, and CSI will be one of the critical elements of our work in the future. And so far we have already seen the majority of companies in Vietnam embracing CSI and Corporate Sustainability Index. It means that businesses are aware of the importance of sustainability, as Dr. Loc mentioned and emphasized in his remarks. And as Madam Tang said, 80% of enterprises embrace CSI, and they have their own initiatives to differentiate themselves. But the important thing here is that the government introduced Decision 1862 on the sustainable development of our businesses. And this year, VBCSD is assigned to advise the government on how to advocate more strongly the idea of sustainability and to have more sustainable corporate entities in Vietnam. And now I have a question for Mrs. Mi from Heineken, Vietnam. Heineken is one of the most sustainable companies that I know of. Sustainable has been a critical part, an integral part of Heineken's operations. Heineken has become vice chair of VBCSD in the 3rd term. Heineken works closely with our Ministry of Environment and also Ministry of Labor and Invalids. And I know that Heineken has been ranked top among businesses in Vietnam when it comes to sustainability. So, Mrs. Mi, could you please share with us how you use CSI at your company and how does it contribute to sustainable development of Heineken Vietnam? Well, thank you very much, Mr. Vinh. I also would like to thank VCCI and VBCSD for inviting me to be here at this forum. Before I respond to Mr. Vinh's question, I just would like to share some information about Heineken and our journey towards sustainability and how we can generate values. I'm very interested in the presentations by Madam Thanh and also the remarks by Dr. Loc. I hope that the handbook will allow us to better mitigate risk, recover from the crisis, and I also would like to give you some examples from our company, Heineken. Heineken Vietnam has 6 factories and 10 offices in Vietnam in 2019 alone. In our supply chain, we have already supported and created 200,000 jobs. And you can imagine GDP, Heineken contributes to 1%, contributes 1% to the GDP of Vietnam. Now, I would like to share with you how we identify risk and turn risk into opportunities when we embrace sustainable development. Dr. Loc emphasized the importance of network as a model and how we can identify opportunities. So at Heineken, we are very attentive to our stakeholders, not only to our workforce, we also listen to feedback, and we have 3 elements. Number 1, the impact. Number 2, the interest of stakeholders. And number 3, our ability to control, so that we could identify the key issues to focus on when we embrace sustainability, as Madam Thanh explained. So once we identify the key areas for improvement, we make plans to improve them with concrete targets, and we measure our progress. So in 2019, we identified critical areas in 3 elements: people, planet, and profit. Among the issues we touch on today, digital transformation is one of the interesting topics. So we initiated and started digital transformation this year. We track the progress, and here's what we achieved in 2019. We supported and generated more than 300,000 jobs. We also supported local communities. In 2019 alone, we donated around 6 billion Vietnam dong to poor households in Vietnam. we are also interested in developing our people. So we have invested quite a lot in capacity building for our people. We are involved in the beverage industry, so we also promote and advocate the responsible consumption. We have only less than 1% of our byproducts or residues landfilled. So the vast majority are recycled and reused. Yesterday we had a session on circular economy, and I can say that we have done a very good job of recycling and reusing those materials and resources as part of our circular economy effort. We also embraced innovation, for example, by reducing the use of cardboard. We have already reduced around 3,000 tons of paper last year, or cardboard. Over the last 4 years, Heineken has already been ranked among the top 3 in terms of CSI. In 2017, we were ranked first in the CSI, but we are not complacent with what we have already achieved. This is just the beginning. We continue to listen to our stakeholders. In this year, we set very ambitious targets and goals. I also appreciate the recommendations shared by Dr. Loc this morning. The challenges facing the world will lie in the relationship or interaction between people and the nature. So we are aware of the implications of climate change, and that's why we are committed to water efficiency. We are committed to reusing and recycling the water that we use. Second, we are committed that by 2025 we will use fully renewable energy at our factories and establishments. With the PPA, power purchase agreement, the government will start implementation, allowing companies to join the renewable energy schemes in Vietnam. And by 2025, we are committed to nearly zero waste. Only 1% of waste would be in the landfill. But of course, we have to do more to reduce it. So this is our approach. This is what we can mitigate risk in the best way possible, and how we can identify and turn opportunities, challenges into opportunities. Well, we embrace the same model, and this is what you can see at our factory. During the lockdown, things are very quiet in the community. However, we maintained our operations. We established the COVID-19 committee. This committee has the involvement of leadership at the global, national, and local levels. The COVID-19 committees are headed by our top leaders. And during the COVID-19, we focused on people, as our colleague has already shared. And secondly, we supported our people to maintain and sustain our operations. Heineken not only focused on its business operations to continue its business performance, but also supporting our stakeholders. In the same way as Nestle has already done, we have the involvement of our CSO. We have a regular communication where we discuss with our workforce on a wide range of issues, ranging from business to health. We also have the live stream sessions, and we make use of Facebook page to share tips to keep ourselves safe and protected during the crisis. All of us experienced the COVID-19, so when we pay attention to the health and welfare of our people, we not just focus on their physical health, but also their mental health, because I know that at that time, it's quite easy to become stressed and mentally exhausted. So we take good care of our people in terms of mental health. We also make it available, the signposts and instructions for our people. We fully comply with the measures introduced by the government to respond to COVID-19. For example, work from home, provision of sanitizers, hand sanitizers, or temperature check. We also keep required distance within our facilities. As soon as the lockdown was lifted, we encouraged our staff members to visit our suppliers and our agents. During COVID-19, our Tiger brand introduced unlock creativity. That means we need to find new ways to unlock our creativity, how to be and how to stay positive during the crisis. And during the lockdown, Tiger introduced some schemes to welcome guests when they come back to restaurants. We offer the first drink to them as a welcome when they come back to the hotels or restaurants, etc. We also have a plan to introduce a local beer brand. We were supposed to do so in April. However, during the lockdown, we supported Vietnam Fatherland Fund with the funds of around 10 billion Vietnam dong. And as Dr. Loc said, that speed is so important during the crisis. So Beer Viet changed our slogan. Its slogan was, "It is born to work with the community." So we were very adaptive. And during the second wave, La Rue in Quảng Nam also works with the Vietnam Fatherland Fund. We provided face masks and hand sanitizers in Quảng Nam. And at the global level, Heineken supported the Vietnam Fatherland Fund with 15,000 US dollars. As Brunetti said, in 2020, we did not reduce salaries, but instead we increased the salaries of our staff as a result of the strong performance we got in 2019. there's no reason for us to cut down the salary of our staff in 2020, given our very strong performance in 2019. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we have already done to respond to COVID-19, how we embraced sustainability, how we set our own directions to mitigate risk and manage through the difficult times, respond to the situation, identify and turn challenges into opportunities. I would like to respond to Mr. Ving's question. Heineken has already been part of the ranking process in Vietnam. CSI ranking has 3 elements that we attached importance to. First of all, CSI was developed based on its national standards. So it's complete, it's comprehensive. Second, it's relevant. CSI has input provided by our experts here in Vietnam, apart from its alignment to international standards, so it's very much relevant to our circumstances. Second, for enterprises that have not embraced sustainability, when they answer around 80% of the questions, they can know for sure what actions they should take to achieve sustainable development. And for those who have already embraced sustainability based on international standards, including Heineken and other multinational companies, we find it as a measure, as a benchmark to measure our performance. We identify what works and what needs to be improved in Vietnam. CSI is free of charge. I mean, VBCSD's members can join CSI ranking freely without cost. In other schemes, it may be costly, but for this one, it is free of charge. While we can learn from our peers, and we can also improve our performance accordingly. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mrs. Mi, for sharing with us your practice at Heineken. Now, I have a question for Mrs. Chen Anh Dao, Deputy Director General of Ho Chi Minh City Stock Exchange. Well, the stock exchange has more than 20 years of operation with the development of capital market in Vietnam. So could you please share with us the direction and also action plan of HOSE, Ho Chi Minh City Stock Exchange, to achieve your goals? And what do you think about the CSI so far? HOSE has already worked with VCCI in developing the CSI and then conducted ranking. So what's your view on the CSI from the regulator's perspective? Because I know that we will work with other stakeholders to further advocate for the CSI adoption in Vietnam. Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Ving. Ladies and gentlemen, the stock market in Vietnam and our stock exchange celebrates 20th anniversary. In 2003, we became a member of the World Stock Exchange Federation, and in 2013 we became a member of the UN's initiative. In our development process, we see sustainable development as one of the goals. not only for listed companies, but also for our stock exchange. Our goal is that by 2025, all listed companies on Ho Chi Minh City Stock Exchange will produce sustainability report meeting regional standards. So starting in 2013, we initiated some ideas and activities, for example, a sustainability award. Trafico and PNJ are one of the awardees. In 2017, we introduced the VNSI Vietnam Sustainability Index for investors. When they join the stock market, they see VNDAX and VNCI as the critical elements. VNSI of the top 20 companies with high sustainability ranking in Vietnam. So how can we have 20 companies in the VNCI bracket? So we have a pool of 100 companies with the biggest capitalization value. We have a set of criteria centering around environment, society, and governance, CSE. Enterprises benchmark against those indicators or criteria, and then in July each year, we announce the top 20 companies with the highest sustainability scores so that they could be included in the VNSI ranking. In a normal condition, few companies may pay attention to it. For investors, there are two important indicators, that is VN Index and VN 30. This is what they are interested in. However, since the emergence of COVID-19, more investors are interested in VNSI. Because when China announced the epidemic on the 10th of January, we have already seen the reduction in the value. However, VN Index only dropped around 2%. It means it is reduced less than those in other countries. VNSI only dropped 0.32%. So the top 20 companies with the highest sustainability ranking were highly appreciated by investors. And during the crisis, they still keep those stocks. And that's why their prices keep unchanged. So this is what you can see from the adoption of the enterprises. We shouldn't pursue short-term benefits. Sustainability takes time. As our colleague from Heineken has already said, it may take us years, even decades, to see the result. So at HOSE, we are aware that when a company becomes listed in the market, transparency, openness will be the norm. So we also care about their policies to ensure sustainable corporate governance, and those who have sustainable corporate governance, they can go very far. We have VNSI and CSI indexes here in Vietnam. Ho Chi Minh City Stock Exchange worked very closely with VBCSD in implementing VNSI across the country, especially in Ho Chi Minh City. And we have 2 listed company representatives here today. We saw very positive feedback from our companies. And hopefully CSI will be integrated into VNSI so that we can bring a clearer message to investors in the market as well as in the world. I think we need to work closely together to strengthen our networking, and in the CSI today we haven't got any section on corporate governance yet. This morning Mrs. Tang introduced a handbook, and we see a very strong section on governance, and I think this is what we can use to fill in the gap. It's a very good complement. So I think we should discuss further about this point. When we pursue CSI or VNSI, we just respond to the questions on the questionnaire. For normal investors in the market, they have yet to access all information available. What I mean is that companies have practices and policies as well as the outcomes of their sustainability and governance. However, they have yet to disclose or make it available on their websites, and that's why it's very difficult for investors to have information to assess or evaluate those companies. So I think disclosure of information is so critical to raise the awareness of our investors as well. It will allow our market to be more transparent. So this is the gap that we need to close. I hope that in the future, once CSI becomes an official index adopted by the government to measure the company's competitiveness, for example, then we can use CSI as a tool to measure companies in Vietnam in terms of sustainability so that they could further embrace sustainable development. Thank you very much, Mrs. Dow. Actually, your answer, your response help us to respond to one question by the audience. So the use and adoption of the CSI is very important, and as explained by Mrs. Dow. Well, I think time is up. I think that we should spend some time for the audience to ask questions. Before we turn to our online audience, I'm wondering whether any participants here would like to ask questions. Yes, the lady, please. Could you please identify yourself before asking questions? Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Vinh and panelists. I find the discussion today very informative. I have a question for Mrs. Ha. But before that, I just would like to share. CSI this year has one section on gender equality in the workplace. This is the addition to the CSI. I think it's quite relevant not only in Vietnam but also in the world, because Vietnam has been committed to the 17 SDGs and gender equality is one of them. Vietnam also joined many FTAs, and equality in access to the labor market is also one of the requirements. So I have a question for Mrs. Ha. I know that Trafaco has already been involved in the gender equality assessment. So my question is, how has it benefited Trafaco in your sustainable development strategy? Thank you. Thank you very much for your question for Trafaco. I'm sure that you have already read quite a lot of information about Trafaco. Well, ladies and gentlemen, and the virtual audience, Trafaco has been one of the 6 companies awarded with the F, or gender equality. At Trafaco, we employ quite a lot of women. They account for more than 60% of our workforce. One of our key operations are research and development. We award the contributions of our female workers in terms of scientific research, especially those who won Koloveskaya Award. Sustainable development will allow us to conduct business more easily. So we empower our women so that they can contribute more to the company's development. We have done so in terms of recruitment, promotion, and training. We have certain criteria designed for our female staff members, especially our female workers. So what does it mean for our company? Well, we do not care about profit or benefits for the shareholders. As far as sustainability is concerned, people must be put first. It's the most important asset that we have. So at Trafaco, we not just take good care of our female workers, but also nurture the trust among our employees in the company, so that they can have trust and confidence in the company, and as a result, we can retain them. It's one of the reasons and values that we have to retain our staff members. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Mrs. Ha, for your response. I'd just like to add, VCCI has already worked with local international experts to develop the indicators so that we could measure the sustainable development of companies to promote their practice of sustainability, particularly SMEs. This is a living set of indicators and criteria. Each year, our experts sit down together to update the CSI. We have already updated indicators for circular economy, and this year we include gender equality indicators in the index, so that it could be relevant and meeting the requirements of our companies. So this is the direction that we set for the CSI. And we have a joint committee consisting of representatives from VCCI and Monterey and other government agencies. Well, I got one question for myself from a participant joining us virtually. The government introduced or issued a resolution 1632 on the private sector development to promote quality development of enterprises in Vietnam as the foundation for the country's economic development. So I'm wondering whether VCCI and VBCSD can share with us your future directions regarding CSI in the future without incurring further cost to the enterprises. Well, this is an important question. Thank you for that good question. Actually, it's part of our plan to implement important tasks in 2021. Under Decision 1362, the government assigned tasks to different line ministries to promote the private sector development. VCCI is one of those agencies, and we hope that more enterprises will embrace CSI. We worked with the Ministry of Planning and Investment, Ministry of Labor, Ministry of Environment, and also Vietnam Confederation of Union, so that the CSI indicators could be used as benchmarks for companies to measure their sustainability and to be aware of their scores, particularly at times of COVID-19. We cannot know what kind of epidemics or crises that may emerge in the future. Deputy Prime Minister Vũ Đức Đam said in a event by VBSD recently, he said that sustainable development was a vague concept among businesses in Vietnam 10 years ago, but now it has become a very clear direction. VBCSD has already developed the tools and the roadmap. CSI is a tool for enterprises to measure their performance, and under the Decision 1632, we will work with enterprises and their communities to perfect the CSI indicators so that more companies can adopt those indicators. We may work with the line ministries, for example, Ministry of Science and Technology, to upgrade this set of indicators into standards so that it could become a standard that enterprises in Vietnam can meet. I also shared this idea at many international events, including the event in Singapore on sustainable development. Bảo Việt or P&J have already been awarded with very high prizes or rankings. So this is what I just would like to respond to the question addressed to me. I would like to thank our audience, online and offline, and I welcome any questions that you may have. After this event, you can send your questions to us so that we can respond to later on. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our participants and also the panelists. On behalf of the VBCSD and VCCI, I'd like to give you a summary of what we have had so far over the last 2 days. On the 16th of September, we organized a PPP workshop or seminar. Around 130 business representatives attended that PPP seminar. And yesterday afternoon, we had the first breakout session as part of the VCSF on circular economy. 300 business representatives attended the circular economy session. I haven't seen the statistics today yet, but I'm sure that the corporate governance is attracting more participants to join. So we take note of the questions and inputs as well as the comments by the participants today, because they will be important inputs for government agencies and other stakeholders when we organize the forum in mid-December this year on sustainable development. And this is what I'd like to share with you today. And again, I would like to thank you for joining us in the forum, and I look forward to seeing you again in mid-December, and hopefully by that time COVID-19 will be under control and we can come back and we can interact with each other in a new normal. I look forward to a bigger event with more participants joining, around 800 or 1,000 participants joining us, along with CEOs and business executives. We will meet and share our best practices and lessons learned so that our business community could be more sustainable in a changing world. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Ving, for your moderation, and also our panelists. Please give a big applause to thank our moderator and panelists.